in here.
I've just got water.
It was just from the morning. All right, I'll set this thing behind us, Mary.
Okay.
Oh, where do you want to go?
Well, so first, after everybody's drinking, how about we cheers to great communities? I say we drink to that, right? For sure. And thanks everybody for coming. So as we launch this thing, it seems like everywhere that we look and everywhere we turn, we see everybody else is talking about conservation and agricultural preservation, everybody except really planners. And even so recently, there's recent publications, the USDA and US Forest Service Rangeland on the Edge report. And I don't know if Rob, that report is amazing, and it strictly deals with rangeland on the edge. So this is non-irrigated rangeland that typically everybody will say, nope, there's nothing happening there. It's just dry ground. The loss of rangeland acres is astronomical, and there's implications beyond just loss of rangeland. It's when the housing moves in, how much more water it takes, and the species and habitat that it displaces. So that if you can read that report, it's amazing if you have rangelands in your area. The American Farmland Trust, I think we've talked a lot about this report. The farms under threat and the conversion of agricultural lands to low density residential is staggering. Another great report to dig into. Western Landowners Alliance Roadmap to Redefining Conservation. And this is even, I mean, this is like you'll see right here with the Biden administration up to the date stuff of this Western Landowners Alliance really digging in about how to move forward and conserve these agricultural lands. Realtors Land Institute for transitional land real estate course to teach these people how to buy up the cheap land and convert it because they see them as transitional lands. And just such a core of what we want to talk about today is how are we looking at our agricultural lands and what's the mindset of planners when we see all of these other, and that's four of many, many, many. If you start looking, you will see that these reports and other people who are digging into this are just countless. And I think as planners, we've done a poor job really at digging into this. I wanted to share because of this transitional lands. Yep, can I share real quick? Can I just steal that from you?
Yeah.
So I got this, and let me show you page one. Got this to my house recently. It's my husband's name, but we'd love to purchase your land in Owyhee County. Enclosed is this purchase agreement, and I won't read it word for word. And then it tells about this one horse property is this property investment company. They can have a check to my door in 3 days to buy my property. And I don't know if you guys know us, we own a lot of ranch land. It's some irrigated, some rangeland, timberland, just kind of a big place. What I believe these folks did was find parcels that had no improvement category on it, no dwellings, no buildings. And it seems like within the county, these have gone out to tons and tons of people that fit that category. So if we're interested, go ahead and sign the purchase agreement attached. I go to page 2. Now, mind you, this is it's an odd little piece of property, but you'll see here it's 22.441 acres. They're offering me a whopping 13,499 for 22 acres. It's irrigated ground, and it's a piece we just had to divide off to make the house parcel only have 10 acres. This piece is landlocked within the midst of thousands of acres of the rest of the ranch land. It is has no public road access, and here these folks are reaching out to buy my 22 acres for 13,000. It would sell for, and that little piece, I mean, 10, 15,000 an acre. So to offer 13.4 for 1 acre, if people are accepting this, and I guess the point with this is who's looking at our counties and now or cities, look at what they're doing, I guess, and going out and identifying properties and just offering to buy sight unseen money within 3 days. And anyway, so that's the point. Everybody is keyed into this thing, and if we're not, we're really late to the party here. So that's that. Yop, you have that the rural planning document. This was one last.
Here it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see that. There we go. Somehow I got to stop sharing.
I
There we
don't.
go. So Yap had found, let's go ahead and talk about what you found there. You'll see the many pages, Yap, but
Sure. So this is a resource guide for rural planning and design that I found on a planning website. And it has, I think, 20 pages of resources for rural planners. And I went through all 20. The first time I read it, I got upset. The second time, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not reading it correctly. There's all kinds of stuff on there: historical preservation, the National Association of Arts, the American Planning Association. There is not a single agricultural interest on there or agricultural organization. So it was really interesting to look at. Here's rural planning, here's the resources, and they don't even talk about agriculture. They talk about the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, and they talk about the engineering corporations, but nobody talks at all about agriculture, which I thought was really interesting. Here's rural planning, and we have not included rural plan or actually agriculture. Should we do the next poll first, Mary? I think we're forgetting something.
yes, please do. I think you're right. We are forgetting something.
We're telling people already what we're worried about.
Oh, no.
All right, so here's the question. What's scaring you in your jurisdiction? We asked this question last time in the ACT chat group, and it was interesting to see the results. So we're really interested to see what is scaring you in your jurisdiction as a planner.
See that we have. And also, anybody who has a camera, turn it on. We'd love to see you guys. We don't get enough interaction these days. So if you're comfortable with it, we'd love to, come into your homes tonight too and drink with you. Yeah, and if you have that other category, you can type it into the chat if there's something that's not listed there.
Looks like we're at 85% right now.
Which means we're missing one person.
Oh, two.
Lindsay, feel free to tell us what you're worried about anyway. It doesn't matter that you're not a planner.
Aaron, when you went to get your drink, you disappeared into the black hole of the parking lot there. It was pretty cool.
Thanks, Brian. All right, so can you end the polling and share it with everybody?
All right, there we go.
Okay, so number one is loss of farmland. Well, I guess we're all talking about people that worry about farmland. We asked the question last time, and it was interesting what the results were that came out of there. There were really a whole bunch of different things. We had hoped that everybody would have said keeping up with the applications, because then we would have made a really good, would have been able to make an argument that like, well, that's not what you should be worried about. But you guys are a lot worried about loss of farmland. Do you have anything to say about this one, Mary?
No, except for I messed it up and I probably skewed the results by launching headlong into my one-horse letter.
So it's interesting that transportation, once again, Mary and I have been noticing that transportation always scores high. And again, that's the number two. So that's interesting. All right, let's stop sharing the results. All right, I think it's my turn for a talk. And this is planning with Pints. So please, everybody, I would like to see your face and interrupt us wherever you feel like, because when I'm sitting in a bar, I like to talk with people. I don't like to just do a presentation. So please feel free to interrupt, raise your hand, do whatever you want. Tell me, Yap, you're totally wrong with that stuff. Mary, that's not true. That's the way Mary and I have been always doing this stuff, and it's been fun. All right.
But wait, yeah, we have a video clip first.
Oh yeah, that is now, because see, here is my house. That was your sign. That is now your turn.
Right.
For anybody,
you guys are really funny. I'm glad you don't rehearse before you do these things.
We totally do. This is rehearsed. What are you talking about, Wendy?
So for anybody who wonders about this house, this was just me trying to show that I do have a rural background. I was born in this farmhouse, and it has an orchard. Unfortunately, my parents were just renting the house, and the orchard wasn't theirs. And now I'm really regretting that we moved, because it's a beautiful little house. And this is also the wonder of technology. I can show you this house now without going anywhere, because I just go on Google Earth. I go in front of the street to take a picture of the house, and that's it. All right, go ahead, Mary.
All right. Like this, I think. Can you see that?
I see it.
It's like a little sliver of a.
Well, U.S. farmland declined faster.
Can't see it then?
No, I just see a line. We can hear you, but we can't see it.
For the last 2 decades than
Okay.
anyone had
Well,
expected.
we don't want to do that yet. You see it over
Yeah,
here?
we see it. Now we see it. There you go.
That, like
Screen.
that. Off we go.
Well, U.S. farmland declined faster over the last 2 decades than anyone had expected. And experts say we should be acting now to protect what remains. RFD TV's Sarah Mock has more.
U.S. farmland is disappearing faster than anyone expected.
31 million acres over a 20-year period from 1992 to 2012. And just to put that in perspective, that's the same amount of land that equates to the farmland in Iowa. It's 175 acres an hour, or 3 acres a minute.
But Piatti says urban sprawl isn't the only factor driving this trend.
We're going to lose farmland not from development, but just from climate change in the future. As precipitation patterns change, as temperatures change, as sea level rises, we're going to lose land if we do nothing.
Experts at AFT advocate a number of options to stem the loss, which include supporting state and federal programs for farmland protection. He says research and understanding the greatest threats to agricultural acreage is another vital investment.
One of the things we're learning is that a lot of the farmland loss is not the 100 acres on the urban edge that becomes 200 houses. That we all see and we all know. But what about the 100 acres that gets divided up over 10 years into 5 and 10 acre lots that take that land out of agricultural production? That was basically missing because we haven't been counting it right.
In the long term, Piatti says, easement purchasing, local planning, and efforts to increase the economic viability of existing farms must be part of the strategy. He hopes information collected by his organization will be a call to action in Washington and beyond.
I don't think there's an option to not do what's right here. What's critical is implementing a strategy. And I come back to what I said before. We need a true 21st century plan for farmland protection. And it has to involve a lot of players. It perhaps involves government at all levels, but it has to involve the citizenry. It has to be elevated to something that people realize there's no farms, there's no food.
Piatti also emphasizes that loss of farmland in the United States has global implications, given that the U.S. is home to the greatest quantity of arable land within a single country in the world. American Farmland Trust plans to use all of this information to push for additional support for farmland protection programs in the 2018 Farm Bill. For RFD TV, I'm Sarah Mock in Washington.
Well, a second study by American Farmland Trust is expected later this year, which will provide information on how acreage is lost across the country and will also shed some light on the effect.
Hey, everybody showed up on video. Good to see you all. So did you catch that? He said, we all noticed the, 100 acres that becomes 200 homes here. Let me stop some other video that's playing. But what about the 100 acres that's divided over 10 years? And that really is the thing that I think is plaguing us, is that it's the slow, the frog in the pot that gets boiled really slow that we don't notice. It's just one more home. What's it, it doesn't really have any impact. Well, Yop and I almost hate to do this. Do you mind if I share? Well,
Go.
Yeah. Okay. So we had gotten into, I started kind of just seeing this, and this is years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, of these one more homes, and it's just one house and it really is not hurting anything. And so I mapped this on our GIS map, and I'll show that to you really quick and what that looked like as I saw the patterns. It was kind of horrifying, and I think I'm gonna have to throw this over here. You guys see that now? Can you see that map?
Yep.
Okay, so this is just the north end of Owyhee County. Homedale's at the furthest north, and then Marsing, those are the red are the cities. And you can see our zones. Green is agricultural, the blue is multi-use, the cities, and around there you have some residential zones. And again, this is just one small portion. Our county's giant. And I'm going to turn on what it was 18 years of conditional use permits that were approved. And once we mapped that and saw what we're doing, and you see that pattern, those yellow squares are approved conditional use permits, the patterns there in the agricultural zones. And what that was is just the leniency and the inexpensive land that was so easy to convert to low density residential use. And in this one area of the county, what we had done already to ourselves by just going along with that, but it's just one more house, what's it really going to hurt? So just, we'll go on to Yap there.
No, Mary, can you show that map again? So, because the yellow wasn't all that hard, wasn't all that easy to see. It looked like it was all along the river.
It mostly is, it surrounds, can you see it already? No, share. And I can symbolize that a little bit, or I made it up really light so that you could see those. Let me just symbolize this a little bit different here. So now you can see the green is ag, blue, and the yellows, well, I point, we've got a lot of yellow right up through here, some river frontage. And then around the cities. But the rest of that is ag. And if we turned on soils, you'd see that, well, even in some of the multi-use zone is really great ag soils and productive cropland. But we have so much that is just dry ground, that is rangeland, that is a huge part of our economy for grazing. So that's what I know.
All right, so when you saw all your conditional use permits, that scared you a little bit. Actually, you never showed me the map until now I saw it, and I'm like, that's not so bad.
You think that's not bad? It's horrifying. What's the point of our ag zone if we're going to do that to it? That absolutely is low density residential in our agricultural zone. I'm not sure. Yeah. And keep in mind, in some of those areas, you have farms and ranches that own thousands of acres that really have no intent of doing that. It's these pieces that we see that get fragmented into smaller parcels that then you can see those were all kind of clustered, right? So where we see one little development pattern, we start to see that multiply.
All right, so this is really where all this came from. And then we started the Ag Chat. And what I want to talk about real briefly is kind of where we are. And I think the first thing that we have already found out in the Ag Chat is we really have not done a very good job taking care of ag in our comprehensive plans. And we asked people to look at it, and I think most people were finding we really didn't take care of it very well. We didn't really write down very much about agriculture. And then especially, we probably not deliberately connected our comprehensive plan with our land use regulations. And I think Wendy, interrupt me, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that was typically something we found in that group, right? There was no connection. It was either not addressed at all in the comp plan, or it was addressed, but then it was really not tied into the land use regulations.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary.
All right. Hey, in 2 slides, that's not bad, or 2 backgrounds. See, I have finally figured out how to do Death by Zoom and PowerPoint at the same time. It's fantastic. All right. All right. So let's go on to the next one. I pushed the wrong button here. All right. So personally, I hear a lot of people like, well, we don't have a very strong land use regulations in the state. And I want to say, let's not blame the state for weak planning tools, because I really think that's really not what the reason is. And it's really not fair to blame the state. And part of that is that even states that have really strong planning systems, I came out of Florida, strong planning system, but they still failed to actively protect and promote agriculture. And their agricultural land disappeared just as they are starting to disappear here. And it's probably because we don't really think about agriculture in the way that we should. So the conclusion that I would have is that it's up to us to figure this out and take a proactive approach about the future of our agriculture, rather than just what I would call play defense. We kind of sit there and we'll protect agriculture rather than thinking about what is our vision for agriculture? What do we need to do to actively stimulate agriculture in the areas that we want agriculture? So, and now Mary is going to tell me, yup, I don't have time for this. And Wendy is going to say the same thing. And anybody who is I know Aaron last time said he was also up to his eyeballs in permit applications in the state. So I know we don't have time for it, but we really need a discussion with county commissioners and stakeholders about what is going on in the state and what is going on in our jurisdictions. And not just with regard to agriculture, but I think with regard to a whole bunch of different things. We probably then, if we would do it correctly, and we should work on our comp plan with the stakeholders and the county commission and ask ourselves, does it actually support your vision and promote agricultural activities in ag areas? And I know, again, we don't have time. We're all really busy right now with all the development pressure, but it's really something that we should be doing if we really want to take ag seriously. And then, of course, we need to deliberately connect agricultural designations with appropriate land use regulations. Let's actually make sure that we don't just have low density zoning in those areas, but that we actually think about what makes sense in these agricultural areas. Now, I've learned in talking with practicing planners that we need to make sure to collaborate with legal counsel. Mary says that all the time. You need to talk with legal. You don't want to bother them all the time, but you do need to talk with them every now and then, ask them for their opinion. And to me, the thing is, besides regulating, are there things you can do to incentivize, things that you can do to facilitate, to actually give agriculture a step ahead of all other kind of land uses? Mary, you had a comment?
No, I didn't have a comment, but we also told people, we forgot to tell everybody, pipe in if you have any questions, and we want to have interaction here. So if there's questions you have in the meantime, please feel free to pipe in here too.
All right. So here's another thing that Mary keeps telling me, because she's very worried when we talk agriculture that we think all agricultural interests are the same, and we need to realize, and she always says, farming interests have specific challenges and concerns, but it's a diverse group with diverse opinions, although there probably are some common concerns and needs. And I noticed that myself. I was in a community review session today for Blackfoot, and I realized how people generalize and are not really clear about there's actually differences in opinion, and we typically generalize. So in the case of farming, it's not like everybody has the same opinion, and we need to realize that people have different opinions and different ideas.
And different agricultural operations. So dairymen are so different from cattlemen, so different from farmers, and we have our own organizations that we tie into. But also, I guess what I wanted to say here is that so often I see planners focusing on urban agriculture and small farms, and the 10 acres or 5 acres hobby guys, or people that are raising a couple of animals, chickens or a steer in their backyard for their own use. And that's not the agriculture, at least in this presentation, that we're talking about preservation of. It's the landscape scale production agriculture that we feed our nation with. I mean, so it's our working landscapes. And when we talk though about the urban areas, for sure, it'd be nice to have the cities also looking at that and preserving the best of what you have left. It was really interesting to me at the last APA conference, one of the 80 county commissioners was one of our keynote speakers. And I had typed in a question, what is Ada County doing to preserve the best of the ag ground that you have left? And the answer was, tongue in cheek, the horse has left the barn already. It's probably too late for us. And I just fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think it's too late. And I think once that land is developed, obviously it's too late. And I think there'll be a lot of regret. So it's not too late, but it's becoming too late in the face of the development pressure that Idaho and the Treasure Valley is facing right now.
And I think it's especially becoming too late because what we're starting to see is the fragmentation. It's not just the sheer amount of land use that is being it is the fragmentation of large pieces of agricultural land in smaller pieces that really are starting to cause the problems. So, of course, all this stuff that I'm saying that we don't have time for also only works when planners understand the challenge, which is your clue, Mary.
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat and I'm terrible at multitasking. Deanna saying she needs to get going out of here, but Deanna, it's so nice to see you too, and for being here. And it's not too late for Ada County. 20 years, look at they had done something previously. All right, so my next video, is that what you're getting at here?
Yep.
My next video. So we're going to go ahead and share. And really, these videos are really trying to help frame the issue. At the end of that last video clip, they said, you know, Farmland Trust is going to come out with their report, and that's the Farms Under Threat report that we talked about at the beginning of this. So, yup, I've lost my video. Give me just 1 minute here. I'm the worst at this.
Can I jump in real quick?
Go for it.
So one of the things I noticed when I first started working in local government for a city is that I was told that cities don't have a role in agriculture and that everything should just develop. And I always felt like that was the wrong approach, because you need to, sometimes I feel like you need to look at it as the regional footprint. And I don't know if that's something we should do or not, but.
Well, that's why we're hoping that we would have more city planners, all right, so that we really can start at the dialogue between the more urban focused planners and the people in counties, so that we can actually discuss how the two are related and why we should be working together on these things. Oh, it looks like you got it.
I got it.
All right, go for it.
Farms are disappearing. The American Farmland Trust has some unsettling news.
You know what? The opposite sound not good on that.
Not as good as you can have it.
Yeah, so let me do that again. I'm a rookie at this, you guys. Share, here we go. Turn this up a bit. Make that bigger. Here we go.
American farmland is being vacuumed up by development. What's new is the discovery that the development isn't coming only from urban areas expanding outwards. Rural areas are also losing farmland rapidly. The fact is that we have this sort of insidious development that no one's been paying attention to, and we really need to start paying attention. That according to Julia Fredgood, the Assistant VP of the programs at the AFT. The most unsettling part of their findings is why this is happening, that farming is an incredibly difficult and not a very lucrative career path. The average age of the American farmer was nearly 60 in 2012, the last time of the census. As those farmers retire or pass away, successive generations turn elsewhere for jobs. The land goes fallow and is sold off. Another reason, it's sometimes simply worth more to sell farmland rather than actually farm the land, especially if that farmland is near a city or town. Top line is that today farmland produces food, so less farmland means the price of food may rise. The majority of American farmland is devoted to commodity crops, soy, corn, and wheat, and many of the uses of those crops are not for direct eating. Much of it, though, is used for animal feed, and if the price of animal feed goes up, so does the price of meat. 31 million acres of U.S. farmland has been lost to development in total between 1992 and 2012. Just another reason why it's critical that we fast-track vertical farming. To learn more, read the full Farms Under Threat report, and you can also use that link to sign up for updates on the project from AFT.
All right. So did you hear the part where he said the farmland's being vacuumed up by development? And I think that is especially true for Idaho right now. And he also said it's the land. Pardon me? Oh, you can't. Sorry. Whoop. There we go. It also is, he had said sometimes it's worth more to sell the land for development than it is for farming. And we've seen that pattern here as well. But what we're doing is creating that pattern ourselves when we allow those lands to be converted for residential use if they're in an agricultural zone. And really the tie-in here is, what does your comprehensive plan say about the agricultural zone, and what is the intent of it? And are the decisions that you're making locally consistent with what the comprehensive plan, says that you're supposed to do, or says the goal is for the agricultural zone? And what is your zoning designation in the agricultural zone? And so as we had done that pattern that I showed you of converting those lands to low density residential, what it did is drive up the price of those agricultural lands, because now the people could speculate that they can convert it pretty easy, because those folks down at planning and zoning are pretty easy to work with. You go through a process and pay a fee and you get this permit on this land. And what we did is we saw that we started to price our farmers out from being able to even compete to buy that ground, because now it's no longer farm ground. I mean, it's just going for crazy prices. So as we bring that back, and ours was a whole long process of community input and community surveys and getting citizen input about what they wanted to see. And they were adamant to the tune of, and it's different by different parts of the county, but let's just say averaging 80% being adamant about preserving and protecting the agricultural zone and having that development closer to where we can best service it, and that there's not a drain on the taxpayers to provide those services further out, and that we preserve and protect the history and culture here and what we produce. And we've seen that start to reverse. We now have the conversations with realtors and appraisers and anybody else. The ag zone is not where you want to be looking to buy land if you're looking for new development. If there's a house that exists there and it fits your needs, great, but there's no dividing that and putting another house there. We really are directing them to the zones that we have planned for development and new growth, and that is working. It's working really well. It's creating some tension as well, but it's slowing down that loss and conversion of agricultural land that we saw just a terrible pattern of. Yeah.
Well, I was waiting to see if there were any questions.
Oh, well, yes, I'm open for any questions somebody hasn't, or other, just like we had said, what's scaring you in your jurisdictions? And I'd really like to hear some of those things as well.
I have a question.
Go, Brian.
Mary, did you get significant pushback from the owners of those ag lands that, were kind of, when I was an Eagle, we got a lot of comments that farmland was the farmer's retirement account, that they were kind of banking on having that payoff at the end of their career, they could sell it. Did you have a significant pushback from the owners and from the ag lobby of Hawaii County, whatever that looks like?
Sure. There was some of that for sure. I wouldn't say it was huge pushback. There is some though. The issue, or I guess where we were set up in a really good position, is that our agricultural zone never had a provision for residential development by any right. So it always was a conditional use permit. And what we have reined back is handing out conditional use permits like candy. We've now said, wait a second, we're just not going to do that anymore. So I understand your point, and coming from a multi-generational farm family as well, I guess I'll say that and this is maybe what Yap was talking about, is different points of view. For our family, that land is, it's a ranch, and it's going to be a ranch. It's been a ranch for a lot of years. Tiffany, I saw her, she works in my office here. Their family has the oldest ranch in Hawaii County, started in 1865 or something like that. That there's a culture here of, you don't just sell out when you can't do it anymore, that there's another generation that will come along. It may not be my children, but that I always have the opportunity to sell that farm or ranch. I don't get to sell it at the most intensive use that we can possibly imagine. I get to sell that at ag values. And that's been the rub, right? Is that people were like, well, I just have to sell off one parcel to have it developed. But that's not what it was. They never had that right to develop. We're honoring the ag zone. So there are some difficult conversations for sure. But we tell them every use that's allowed in the ag zone, you're allowed to do. You can put a farm on there, a feedlot, you can graze it, you can lease it out to a farmer or a rancher. You can have it as a stackyard, equipment yard, any accessory use to other agricultural things. You just can't expect to put a house on every one of those parcels that has been fragmented. Or in our valley, there's maybe 5 farms or 5 ranches within lots and lots of miles. There's nothing, if we said, hey, we're going to sell out and tried to develop that, and it's in a desirable, really neat valley, that would devastate 4 or 5 other ranches around us to have a resort or subdivision go in there. It's just really not a viable option. And it's extremely, I guess I'll just say, short-sighted for the greater good of your neighbors, of the state, and of agricultural in general. But yes, Brian, we've had those conversations. The biggest plus is that our county commissioners have supported what our citizens said. And for now, that's where we stand. And they're honoring the desire of the citizens that are here. And we all know that that can change with a change of a board or commission or city council or whatever that governing board might be. But for now, this is where we are. And in the face of the intense pressure, it's serving us well right now.
There are actually a couple of questions. So I saw Aaron actually saying there is an ag component in the comprehensive plan, and then saying what should it look like? And I think that's a really good question, Aaron. Have you seen any proposals on what should be in there? Because I don't think there's any guidelines.
No, I haven't. And you know, and I was kind of specifically asking for cities, you know, and it really, in my understanding, and Diane and I have talked about this a little bit, but in my understanding, it just says you have to have one, right? And arguably it's enough to say, well, there's no agricultural land in the city, so that's our component of the comp plan. But you know, we know cities grow, and how they grow is really important and can really affect the long-term viability of you know, ag land. And you know, I did have another question that kind of from Brian's inquiry. I think it's Brian. Yeah, I was just curious, Mary and other rural planners, how many inquiries you get from like inheritance, like, you know, someone dies and a bunch of siblings inherit a farm and they want to upzone it and you know, subdivide it. Is that something you see a lot of?
We have not here, not that scenario where there's, you know, multiple generations inheriting it. Tiffany can answer that. She takes a lot more of those type of calls than I do, but that's not been something that's really prevalent that we've seen. Wendy and others from other rural areas could sure weigh in too. But there's always somebody that's willing, I guess, a farmer who's willing to buy it. And that is changing. We just had, well, Corey Barton, we all know that. Corey Barton, we've heard, just outbid a farmer on 157 acres, really good farm ground. And I'm sure they're going to want to do some big development there. It's the oldest, it's the original Marsing family farm, how the city of Marsing got its name, what's left of the Marsing family farm. So that in that case, the farmer said that he got outbid. It had gone on the market, I think, for $15,000 an acre. It went up to $18,000 an acre. He could no longer make it pencil, and Corey Barton Homes, I guess, won the bid on that. So we'll see how that goes. But I haven't seen that particular scenario with the inheritance deal.
Tiffany, you had a comment on that?
Well, I have gotten some phone calls on that. A few different times had people call in and, you know, we just explain ag zone is not where we have planned for development, but I have seen some of what you're describing, Aaron.
All right.
Well, I was going to say, I think that we see a lot of the people who do want to be able to develop as kind of their retirement plan, and that's somewhat common, maybe not always out here, but it's something that we hear. But if they know that's not an option, then it becomes less of an issue. I think it's that turning point of when you say, yeah, you can do that, to no, we're going to hold the line harder on this. That's where you really see the conflict. But in some other places, like I hear, you know, over in Oregon, where they have different regulations over there and you can't divide as easily and sell off for housing, that those farmers and ranchers over there already know that's not an option for the most part anyway. And so I think that it becomes less of an issue when they don't think they have that as their retirement plan.
Can I just pipe in one small anecdote on there real quick on that point? The other evening on KBOI, Nate Shellman's show in the evening, where Eastern Oregon wants to secede from Oregon and come over here, right? And so he was saying how many people think that's really going to happen, and I want to hear just from Oregon people right now. And I was surprised how many said, heck no, we don't want to do that right now. We don't have any houses. And over there, if we were part of Idaho, you guys just let people divide it up and build it. So no, we don't want to come over there. And Nate says, oh, you'd be surprised. That's only Boise. Not everybody does that. And I have no signal out here. I couldn't call in and say, yes, we do. Yes, we do, Nate. We're all dividing it and developing it. But interesting.
Okay.
I just wanted to jump in because if anybody's taken my planning class, you know the name Hector McPherson. Anybody know Hector McPherson? Rachel should know. But anyway, he was a farmer in the area around Eugene, Oregon, in that area of Oregon back in the 70s. And he was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and he felt powerless because all this development was coming in. And as a local jurisdiction, they had not the authority to say no. And he saw his way of life as a farmer being diminished by that. And he's the one that went to the state of Oregon legislature and got those very restrictive planning laws that they have in Oregon right now, which everybody, either likes or hates. But it was because of the economic interest that was being diminished by this sort of haphazard planning that got that changed. So to me, we need more Mary Huffs around, to support some legislative changes or to talk to the legislators about how important it is, or even just their local jurisdictions. Because I think what we hear at Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are the applicants, the developers, and the poor farmer who wants to retire and use that money that he receives from that development investment as his retirement fund. And to me, there needs to be more. I mean, we intuitively know, as Mary's described, when development come in, it has an impact on the agricultural operations. But what is the financial impact of that? Has anybody done any real studies? And to bringing that up to everyone, I think would be an important factor to consider in these decisions, which now are totally ignored. It's that cumulative effect that Mary described in a little piecemeal stuff that in the end has a real substantial impact, and nobody's tracking that other than the farmland trust. Thank goodness for this study.
Yeah, this is Aaron. And are you referring to the cost of service analysis, Diane? From the American Farmland Trust? It's more of a fiscal analysis. I'm
talking about what it costs a farmer now to, prevent spraying going into urban areas, to have to travel farther on streets and compete with other transportation modes that used to be a country road that he could access. The loss of economies of scales in some operations, those kind of direct fiscal impacts to the farmer or rancher.
Because, one case to be made to like city and county officials is how farmland, commercial land, industrial land, all essentially subsidize the residential areas like in cities, right? Or in more dense areas, because of the cost of service is less than what the tax base for those areas provides. And I know the American Farmland Trust has put out some studies, and shameless plug here. We have a tools and guidelines page on the APA website, and that's one of the links we have up there is cost of community services. But Dan, I'd love to see that study and maybe upload it there as well for people to look at later.
All right, good points. Let's continue for a little bit, right, Mary, or should we just have more discussion, which is fine with me. So I was reminded a little while, and it's too bad that Dan left, but the Idaho Smart Growth Awards had Robert Liberty talk not too long ago in 2019, and he said after not having been in Boise for a while, and he came back and he said, boy, Idaho is changing very quickly. And if you don't pay attention, all this stuff that you like so much will be gone before you blink your eyes. And I thought it was a really interesting comment. And then he continued talking about it. And he said, Idaho has a lot of stuff to be greedy about. And I think, we don't always realize that we do have a lot of stuff to be greedy about. And he says, and besides that stuff is really cheap. which is also true, right? I can see people from California moving into my neighborhood, and for them, that house that to me is ridiculously priced is nothing. And they actually pay cash. But a lot of the stuff that we have is cheap. But I think there's something else going on. And we've been able to do this for a long time, but now we are easily accessible for external players. I can show you the house where I was born in the Netherlands, right? Okay, that is, what is it? I think it's 6,000 miles away from here. And it takes me 2 minutes to actually show you where that is. Similarly, the neighbors that bought a house in our neighborhood never even saw the house. It was unseen. They go to, there's a virtual tour and there's drones and it flies around and they see all the stuff. So Idaho has in many ways become really accessible for all these external players. And we have to be better prepared to protect our assets, our natural resources, and the kind of stuff that we want to keep. And of course, in Idaho, we have not been willing to do that. Now, I found this one. I thought this was really interesting. This was retirement destinations in the US between 1990 and 2000. And even at that time, this was a study done in 2000 by the USDA, or in 2002. Idaho was already a retirement destination and already was recognized nationally as one of those. But why are we not talking about these larger trends as planners? One of my students, Mark Rudd, did a study to look at demographic shifts in Idaho and saw the same kind of things where retirees were coming, Idahoans are moving. There's all kinds of stuff going on that as planners we really don't talk about. And then of course there's this one. Diane, do I impose on you and ask you if you can explain this land swap real briefly to people that's going on in McCall? I'm sure you know exactly about it.
Yeah, there's, I think it's 26,000 acres plus of IDL land endowment land, which is set aside by the federal government to fund education, owned by the state of Idaho, around Payette Lake and Payette Lake watershed and the Payette River watershed. And this land, a developer's approached IDL about trading a portion of it. He would go to northern Idaho and acquire more productive forest land and trade IDL for that in order to develop around on this property. So, the area around McCall is going crazy about this because the city and the county government really have no authority. It's all up to the state, and the state has this mandate to achieve maximum fiscal return on the lands that they own for our education system. So it's a real dilemma. And, as contrary to some of the better initiatives we've seen in the state, in the Sawtooth and Owyhee County, where there's been a real collaborative approach to talking about this land, IDL seems to be taking, fairly, we're going to work on this ourselves, and maybe they have a series of stakeholder meetings right now, but they're kind of just not very cooperative in nature. So it's a real big issue for that area, and could be for other areas that are surrounded by some of these resource lands that either local or federal government decide they don't need anymore and want to see developed.
So thanks, Anne. And I think the last point to me is really relevant and that I wanted to make. So Trident pretends to be a developer. The reality is it's not. If you look them up, they're really not a developer. They're an investment firm. They have never developed anything. This is somebody who used to operate hedge funds. And they just submitted a proposal, and here's the proposal. I'm sure you've seen it, Diane. So this was just proposed. It has all these things in there: Idaho endowment lands to be exchanged, maps of Idaho endowment lands to be exchanged, applicant lands to be exchanged. And I just want to show you the map of the lands that they want to exchange. So this is the applicant lands, and this is what they want to exchange. There's nothing wrong with your camera. There is nothing there. It is all redacted. They're all black pages. And the reality is they haven't bought the land yet. So they don't want to advertise and tell you what land they're going to be buying, because you know what's going to happen with that land. That land is going to be much more expensive all of a sudden if it's become part of a deal. Now, if you look at statutes, you will actually find, I'm really not convinced, Diane, that it says that they have to be their highest yield if you really read it carefully. But it's a really bigger issue. But the issue here is that some investment person has figured out a loophole or something that was certainly not intended to do with these state lands. Hey, if I can swap these lands that are very developable around Payette Lake and buy some other land, then I can have this. The law actually tells them he can't buy it. You can only buy so many parcels at the same time, but you can swap it. Now, if this would actually be approved, and I think you're absolutely right, Diane. I think McCall and the people in Valley County have very little to say about this. This is going to impact. This is a map, and I know Mary that told me it's almost impossible to see, but the little blue dots are state endowment lands. And you can see in northern Idaho, there's quite some state endowment lands right here. There's just south of Coeur d'Alene, there's large swaths, and also just west of Yellowstone Park, of your Yellowstone. So just think about if this actually works. So if IDL allows this to happen, developers are going to be standing around the door to develop these other lands. They're going to find some land that has more value for the state in the sense that there's natural resources, that there is some forest and stuff there. And then they're going to be developing these things. And there's nothing that we can do about it if we don't become more proactive and start paying attention to this stuff. All right, I think it's your turn again, Mary. I'm always such a downer. You're muted.
I was saying, I think it's still you, yeah. I think you're mistaken.
Am I mistaken? Don't you have another video?
I do not have another video.
Oh, all right. So I guess I'll go to the AICP Code of Ethics since Diane is here. The AICP Code of Ethics says we have a special concern for the long-range consequence of present action. So I think we need to actually look at this stuff. We need to pay attention to interrelatedness of decisions. So we actually, as planners, I think, need to tell the state that if you start doing this with the state endowment lands, these are the potential consequences. That's what we're supposed to do, right? We have to look at interrelatedness of decisions. We have to look at what we do in our cities has impact on rural areas and vice versa. And Mary, you talk about the impact of Boise on recreational pressure on Owahis. So those are things that as planners, we should be responsible for. And according to our Code of Ethics, we should be looking at it. We should provide timely, adequate, clear, and accurate information. So I think if we figure out that this Trident Holdings is really not a regular, it's not the same as what is happening in Oahe with swaps with land and in other places. This is a very different animal. It's very different thing. I think we need to provide that information and we need to share that. And I think we need to make sure that people actually have that meaningful impact, which I'm not really sure that we do. I'm not going to go any further because it's only going to get down the drain from here. See, I'm going to just put my house on there again.
Okay. So the last thing, and we're just about out of time, but we can sure, leave this open for conversation if anybody wants to stay. But there was an email that came out from APA National last week with a publication called Reconsidering the Role of Consistency in Plan Implementation by a gentleman, John Zena. And it considers it's just getting to this question really about, are we as planners really doing what we're charged to do and looking at our plans and being consistent with the land use decisions that we make and the daily policies we set in our offices? Are we consistent with what the intent of that long-range comprehensive plan as an overarching guide for us is telling us to do? And then are our zones implementing that? And it really is, you can look at your own counties and are you doing it right or are you doing it wrong? And those things where we're missing the mark, we just need to correct. One of the favorite things I love to say is getting to your end goal is about daily corrections and daily decisions that are consistent with your goals. And that's for, your job, your education, your parenting, whatever that is. If you're not making decisions that are consistent with where you want to end up, you're going to be way off course. And I'm afraid that right now, as planners, we're a little bit off course, that we're too focused on the next application and processing that instead of looking at, does this really fit? Does this make sense for us to have this project here? Or are we just simply processing applications because there's a mechanism for them to do it? So we need to plan better. And I think that's all I have. We got 2 minutes here or something, and I'm happy to stay as long as you guys want. If you guys have questions or comments or want to just tell us what you're seeing in your areas, or if you have something you want to add.
No, Diane made an interesting comment. We never introduced each other.
I think, didn't Elizabeth introduce us? No?
No, they introduced us, but there's all kind of interesting people on the screen.
Everybody, well, yeah, I know we should. I know a lot of people. There's a few I don't. Let's do that if everybody's willing. It's Mary half of Waiheke County.
All right, I'm just going to go along on my screen. So Aaron, you're first on my screen on the left.
Hi,
You have to.
Hi, I'm Aaron Qualls, APA Idaho president, and thank you both. That was really, really good. And thank you, Elizabeth, for all your great work on these series. Thanks everybody for showing up.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, then we have Elizabeth who's next on my screen.
Oh, I already introduced myself, but I'm I'm the Education and Outreach Chair for the Idaho Chapter APA, and I also work at Idaho Smart Growth.
Thank you. All right, Momodou, I have you next. Good to see you twice today.
Yeah, how you doing, man? I'm Momodou. I'm living in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And he's a student at the University of Idaho.
Yeah.
All right, Wendy, you're next.
Wendy Green, Adams County Planning and Zoning. Thanks for doing this, you guys.
Brian?
Brian Parker. I'm seeking employment. University of Idaho alumni. Good seeing you guys.
Well, glad to have you back here, Brian. All right, Tiffany, I've got you next.
Sorry. Tiffany Tuttle. I work at Waiheke County with Mary, and yeah, just doing our best to keep our ag lands that we still have.
Thank you. Carrie. She's like, really?
Hi, everyone. I'm in the online bioregional planning course, so I'm a student. Thank you for a great presentation.
Thanks for joining us. Hi, Diane. I think everybody knows you, but let's go for it.
Yeah, Diane Cushline, planning consultant, professional development officer for the chapter.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay White. I am also in the bioregional planning class, and I am in San Antonio, Texas. So we have had all kinds of interesting planning discussions here lately. I work at the San Antonio Zoo, and we had to evacuate a lot of animals because of poor planning on the zoo's part regarding how the water lines were run. So that was fun. So I got to take part in some of those fun discussions, but yeah, it's nice to see everybody.
Well, it seems like at least you have power.
Yeah, we've had power for a few days now. Now the question is how much we're going to pay for the power now that we have it restored.
All right, well, good luck to you. Rachel.
Hey, I'm Rachel Haukala, Associate Planner with Compass, the Community Planning Association of Southwest Idaho.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Tom. You have your sound on, but we can't hear you.
He says, sorry, his audio is not working, but Tom Laws, APA, Idaho Secretary and ACHD Planning Supervisor, God to Planning. Wow, that's, no, he didn't say that.
You typed that real quick. All right, Tessa.
Hi, I'm a student at the University of Idaho in the bioregional planning program, but I'm also a planner with Bonner County, soon to be a planner with Rowan Yeager. And so, yeah, thanks for the presentation.
Right, you didn't tell me that you had a different job.
They've asked me a few times to come work for them, and they finally made it worth my while to leave.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. So I'll be a contract city planner and county planner for a couple of cities in Bonner County, and then Boundary County and the city of Bonner's Ferry.
Cool.
Very cool. All right, and last, Tyler.
I'm Tyler. I actually work for the State Department of Water Resources, but I'm considering going back to school for planning, for environmental planning. So kind of just wanted to see what it's about and really loving the discussion. Thanks for letting me sit in.
You're welcome. All right. I'm happy to stick around. Or we can just say, let's go get a real drink somewhere.
Did anyone have any questions?
Well, I'll just say when I heard North Carolina and Texas, I thought it was because we were really popular. I didn't know, I got excited there for a second. I was like, wow, word's spreading, but not so much.
We'll have to work.
I just want to compliment Yop on taking advantage of the medium. And are you just swapping out like Zoom backgrounds as you go for your presentation?
No, this is actually something that all planners should know about. So if you're in Zoom and you go to share screen, and from share screen you go to advanced rather than basic, you can actually share a PowerPoint. Now the animations on the PowerPoint don't work anymore, but it actually allows you to have a PowerPoint behind you. It's actually really cool because so I can actually, if I teach, I can go backwards to different places and I can point at the things on my PowerPoint. So it's much more effective than having something, where you have the PowerPoint and then you have this little face sitting somewhere. The other thing that what Mary really likes is I can make myself really small if I want to. And then I can just put my head somewhere like, oh, let's talk about this now. But yeah, I think people should all get used to using that. Zoom has some really interesting new features. There are still some challenges, but if you do a presentation for city council and you can actually sit in your PowerPoint, while you're presenting, it really makes a big difference. And then the other thing that I would suggest everybody does, although Mary said it didn't work for her, is look at that. See, it has it now.
Here we go.
The other thing is that, so I have a green screen behind me and they're ridiculously cheap. And if you have a green screen behind you, you can see I can move and you don't see all this kind of weird stuff going on that other people have. And you actually you have more dimensions than just this flat dimension that you normally have. So I suggest everybody just check out Zoom, to go to share screen, look at advanced options and there you go.
There's some of the rangeland that they're giving $13,000 for.
But Mary loses her hand, right? And if you have a green screen, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter.
Was that your cattle in the last photo?
That is. Let's see, where to go. Oh, the first one I put up?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yep, there we go. Heading down the hill and my daughter's 4-H sheep that sticks around now. Yeah.
All right, really cool.
Calving's coming up. We should have a new calf here any day. There we go. But I don't know how to do a slideshow like Yop does. He's pretty fancy with this stuff. And my head turns funny and disappears.
All right, Tessa is asking a question. And yes, Tessa, if people have time, I would suggest that you do actually talk about this because Tessa is doing an independent studies with me. And one of the things that we came up with is maybe to write a document that gives some guidance about how you can write an ag element in the comprehensive plan. Tricia Nielsen did one, but it was probably done fairly quickly based on the transportation one. So Tessa, you want to ask people about it or tell them what you're trying to do?
It's really in the very beginning because I finally picked what I'm going to be writing about. But it kind of came about with Yacht brought it up and it kind of clicked because Bonner County, if you look at our comp plan, one, it's bad and how it was written. When they did the last update, they contracted out to an engineering firm who wrote it, and then the ag chapter became a requirement and it was kind of an afterthought. So if you look at it, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really have any components that make sense to even be in a comprehensive plan. It doesn't add anything. It kind of even takes away from the strength of any kind of protection for ag lands. And we have very few up here, next to none really. So I think that'll be kind of a perfect paper because it's something I'm really interested and passionate about. Growing up on a farm, I'm a multi-generational farmer rancher for cattle and hay, and just watching the ag lands here just diminish more and more. I live in Boundary now, but my family still has the ranch that I work on, and it's just kind of enclosing more and more. And then eventually they're going to probably have to get rid of it as well if I can't take over it. And so it'd be nice to, not just for Bonner County, but for all the counties in Idaho, to have a template that is really strong and will really help kind of lock down these really important areas in their counties and their city areas. And so the idea is to write essentially a research paper revolving around the agricultural aspects of the state, from the county and city aspect of it, and the importance of the ag chapter in your comprehensive plan, and at the end have an actual template that the counties can use in their comp plan. That's the goal at its very beginning stages right now.
Of course, all this has to be completed in the next 2 months.
Yeah, so there's that too.
All right.
All right, thanks. So next month we'll be having a presentation by Knicksu Land Trust up in North Idaho, and I believe Western Montana is where they're based out of. So stay tuned for that. And then our Voices in Planning next month, we'll have Leon Letts in there chatting with us. So.
Hey, and also third Thursday of every month, we do the Ag Chat, 10 a.m. every third Thursday of the month. YAP sends out a Zoom link. Anybody's welcome to come and do that. And it is really very informal about just questions and patterns we're seeing and things that we can do. So come see us there too.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks
everybody for coming.
Have a good night.
Thank you.